Good morning, everybody. It's your girl, Miracle Sims, and you are listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. It is December the 9th, 2022, and today the topic is true fellowship. Happy Friday, y'all. Happy Friday. I hope that you all had a great day yesterday. Mine was just fine. Uh, Not too much to report yesterday. I got out there. I had to go run an errand. And then after that, I went and did a little hustling in the streets, you know what I'm saying? Doing a little Uber Eats situation. Um, I guess I was just reflecting on that as well as I was reflecting on what the Lord was sharing with me this morning in regards to fellowship or true fellowship. But yeah. But anywho, for the record, tonight, there's a new episode of God, Sex, and Love, the talk show that should be airing at 7 p.m. And it should be part 2 of the single men's chat, the single men's Q&A, or excuse me, Christian single men, their Q&A. So, yeah. Yeah, so be on the lookout for that at 7 p.m. if the Lord's will. Anything else to share with y'all before I get into this? Not that I can think of. So let's go ahead and get into what the Lord has shared with me this morning. So I woke up around 3:46, and y'all know what I did. I looked up the Strong's Concordance after I did my prayer meditation and everything like that. The interesting thing is that it led me to a couple of phrases. And reflecting on those phrases, even though I looked them up and tried to look them up and figure out, if I could put them together or whatever like that, eventually the word fellowship really stood out in my heart and mind this morning. And it wasn't one of the words that was used, but it was the word that came into my heart and mind as I looked at the words that was used. So the interesting thing is, even in this moment, I don't even necessarily remember the words that I came across in the Strong's Concordance, but again, the word fellowship is what stood out to me. And so as I started to look up verses around that, that's where, I feel like I was receiving this confirmation about true fellowship. I know last night I ended up tuning in to, there's this guy on YouTube named Lou, I forget his last name, Valateria or something like that. And he's been on this journey. He's been like documenting, basically, I guess he done took the red pill and he's actually sharing and documenting his journey of learning more about what's going on behind the scenes in regards to like things that I've shared with y'all since 2020, but still, he's kind of new to it or whatever the case is. And so he's actually sharing the journey while he's learning. And yesterday he went live. And one thing I noticed about him in particular, he seemed to have gone viral by sharing his journey X, Y, and Z. And one thing about him I noticed, like, I don't know if he always been this way or what, because I just came across him myself or whatever, and I haven't really watched any of his old content or whatever. But I noticed that when it comes to the things of God, like he stands boldly about Christ. And I'm like, keep on keeping on, bro, because people need to hear what you're saying. And everything like that. I don't know, man. It's just something about a man of God talking like, and I don't even know if he proclaims to be a man of God. I'm just saying he's out here boldly speaking like one, or whatever, and sharing information people need to know. So the interesting thing was yesterday, by the time I tuned in, he was like in the midst of watching this video, and it was all about, he was live and he was watching the video live with, his people, and I guess me included, right? And it was all about, like, I guess it was kind of like about false prophets, but then it was also kind of like touching on this whole thing about, I guess the money that can be made as a pastor these days. And on one hand, I'm like, what got you to this, bro? Because like, why are you watching this? Like, now I know that he takes suggestions from people, so that could be what happened, but I wasn't there when the live started. So I was only tuning in midway. And so I was like, why is he watching this? Because on one hand, I'm like, I understand if you want to get understanding about, that there are false prophets out there, and I get that. I totally understand that. But I don't, I just think just because people are mishandling the word of God, and they are using it to, for their financial gain or whatever, they're misrepresenting and using the word of God, don't mean that what the Bible said isn't true. I don't think that doesn't mean that, like, miracles aren't real, or that God won't bless you when you give to the kingdom, or whatever the case is. Like, I mean, again, just because people are mishandling the word of God, and these quote unquote leaders are taking advantage of their flock, or whatever, don't mean that the message itself is tainted. It means that the people that's giving the message and using the message is tainted, in my humble opinion. So I was kind of confused. I was like, why is he, because I'm like, man, your platform is so big. I mean, you know, and there's a lot of people watching right now. So I'm like, man, I don't want this to kind of discourage people from God. But then I noticed like something had happened and he got disconnected, and then he came back, and he was, he still was, talking boldly about Christ and whatnot. So I'm like, okay, well, maybe it just was something somebody had him watch, or whatever the case is. But I guess I was reminded of that this morning as I thought about fellowship, because people really do take issue with, like, giving offering. They take issue with, prosperity preaching and all that different type of stuff. And I get that, I totally understand that. But again, the Bible does tell us, right, about, God says, test me on this, in regards to giving and receiving, and reaping what you sow, X, Y, and Z. And again, with even going through financial fitness over the past few months or whatever, it helped me to reevaluate the way I think about money, and everything like that. And the way that like when I receive it, I'm being very intentional now about like how I'm managing it and whatnot. So, and I think there's something to be said about that, because the more I've been doing that, the more I've been blessed financially, I would say. The Lord is still providing, and I feel like I've been able to do what I need to do and whatnot. And so I say all that to say that, again, as I was sitting here reflecting on fellowship this morning and everything like that, one of the things, actually, now it's just come back to my heart and mind, one of the words that was in the Strong's Concordance this morning kind of made me start thinking about like limited understanding, and how we have a limited understanding. And I was trying to think about that. I was like, well, Lord, is this what I need to go deeper about? But again, like I said, the word fellowship just really stood out. So I'm like, okay. But now, as I'm talking to you all, and thinking about what I've studied this morning, and also thinking about limited understanding and whatnot, I think, yeah, I mean, I think, this is just another thing that we have a limited understanding about. And it's unfortunate, because again, the misuse and mishandledness, that's a word I just made up, but because the word's being mishandled in that area, people again are struggling, and everything like that. So what does this mean? Well, let me share with you guys what I came across this morning, and then we'll see what the Lord has to say through little old me. All right. So Acts 2:44-47 says, and all who believed were together and had all things in common, and they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all, as any had need. And day by day, attending the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad and generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. So that's a lot there, in my little humble opinion. There's a lot there. Now again, I wasn't in those times, so I'm not sure exactly. I haven't done a deep dive, but by just reading this morning, it gave me this picture of individuals that are believers. They came together, sold their possessions, came together, and distributed amongst each other as they needed. Um, and it seemed like they might have done this with food and everything. Um, Fellowship, true fellowship. Another thing that happened yesterday while I was out delivering or whatever, picking up an order or whatever, I was coming out and I had like 2 orders in my hand, and there was this young lady that was asking, could I, give her something so she can get something to eat. And I was telling her that I wasn't gonna be able to do it. I mean, mainly it was because I had all this stuff in my hands and I was trying to go deliver the order or whatever. But still, we as individuals find ourselves in these awkward situations like this, right? And I feel, I know I've told y'all before about my giving testimony and whatnot. And again, it'd be totally different thing if I was, if my hands was free and if I really just had something set aside to give, I would have gladly given it to her or whatever. Um, However, the thing is like, this is what came to me this morning. So y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, whatever. But I don't think we as individuals should be like um having to have these, how can I say it, Lord? Because am I saying it wrong here? Not to say we don't have to have interactions with people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it seems to me from what I'm receiving this morning that the church, right? Uh like if we were really truly living like this, if we really was coming together, putting all our resources together, you know, food was getting distributed, then how could anybody in our midst be hungry? I don't know. Like y'all can let that marinate. I'm just telling y'all that's what came in my heart and mind this morning as I was reading these verses. I was like, nobody in the community would be hungry if we was all coming together doing that. Now that does, I understand that was a particular time and everything like that, and we are all, in our own bubbles and stuff. But we know that fellowship is important because again, and I think that's why the enemy works so hard to keep us all secluded, keep us all by ourselves. Because the more we're by ourselves, the more we're in our head and in the idle minds. It just goes on and on and on. But when we come together, we get strengthened. When we come together, we can share the joy, hope, peace, and all the things that the Lord has blessed us with, and encourage one another. True fellowship. So yeah, I get it. I get how we can look at these quote unquote again prosperity preachers and be like, wow, you're traveling in jets, but your congregation can't feed themselves. Like that's not, I don't think that's the will of God. And even all these people that make all this money, like, okay, there's this dude on YouTube. Y'all probably know him. I don't know him like that. I'm just came across some of his videos every now and then. What, Mr. Beast or whatever, y'all know him, which is interesting. His name is interesting as well. But anyway, he seems to be a decent guy. He's always giving out money and giving out big extravagant gifts. Oh Lord, look, they don't want me to talk to y'all. And am I saying too much here? Am I hitting the nail on the head? Oh well, the Lord, as long as the Lord keeps giving me breath and these devices still work, I'll be recording. But anywho, as I was saying before I was interrupted, that just like that individual, I believe his content stands out so much because it's like, wow, this dude just gave away all this money, or wow, this dude just gave away a house, or wow, this dude just, and he's doing it in these fantastical ways where it's like, will you quit your job for $100,000, or whatever, and it's clickable. I don't get me wrong, I've watched some of the videos too. You know what I mean? It's interesting. You'd be like, man, it'd be nice to be one of those people right now. The interesting thing is like, and I'm not saying he don't do philanthropy and give, and obviously he giving to individuals, and then it seems like he might be giving to organizations. I don't know what all the man do with the money. that he makes, beyond the content that he creates, and stuff like that. No judgment, obviously. But it's just very interesting, like, again, that people can make so much money and then can give it to individual people, but then there's still people on the streets. Like somehow there's still hungry people, but then there's all these empty buildings, like, you know what I mean? And there's all these, like, you know, and I'm noticing a lot of, because I mean, y'all know that I want to have a venue again one day. I want to have a studio one day, right? So obviously, I notice all the, for lease, for rent, for sale properties and whatnot around. And even with people claiming that there's so much, oh, we're overpopulated and blah 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 blah, but the earth is not fully occupied. Let's stop with that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if we use common sense, like, I can drive to my hometown right now and I see all kinds of land and trees. And I'm not saying cut out all the trees and develop everywhere. I'm not, obviously we need trees, but what I'm saying is that let's not act like the whole world is fully inhabited and there's just too many people, because then people are playing God and, ooh, Lord, you want me to go there? People are playing God and taking it upon themselves to make decisions and, I say, trick the masses. And obviously it's hitting all of us, and I don't think it's all right, Lord. Well, all right. I mean, according to what I'm receiving, y'all, I just don't think it's by chance that, like, so many of our family members have passed conveniently after this quote unquote pandemic. I don't think it has anything to do with the virus. That's me. From what I'm understanding, it has more so to do with the shot than anything. There's some truth there. Y'all can look that up for yourself or whatever. Y'all can come in for me and say I'm wrong, whatever the case is. I'm just saying, based on what I'm receiving, with everything that has happened conveniently after this, like healthy people all of a sudden having heart attacks and all this stuff, like kids having ailments of adults, like it's we all need to just be praying. We all need to just be praying, and some of us may need to be repenting of that. Hey, but seek the Lord for what you need to do regarding all that yourself. But anyway, so with that being said, true fellowship, y'all. True fellowship. All right. Yeah, I get it. I understand how people can look at the faith and then be like, wow, these are supposed to be ministers. These are supposed to be, and obviously God's going to handle those people. You know what I mean? A lot are being exposed right now for their ways and all this type of stuff. And ultimately God will have the final say about them and what they do and whatnot. And what is done to them if they don't repent for what they're doing, by taking advantage of people and whatnot. But yeah, I really like wondered what that would even look like for a community to come together like that. Just a neighborhood. Could a neighborhood come together like that and be like, all right, so let's pool our resources, everybody. Everybody eats. Everybody, whatever. Like, I've never seen nothing like that. And then y'all could tell me, I mean, outside of like maybe hearing about it in the history books, maybe seeing something about villages or something like that. I know there's communal places in the States that people that like communities that do similar things to that. But I don't know. I really would I feel like when it comes to the biblical figures, like they was up on something that we are not necessarily up on. We're so focused on ourselves as individuals that we don't, I guess, value and see the value of fellowship and community and stuff. Like, again, I still barely know my neighbors around here. And by doing Uber Eats, I've seen more of my neighborhood and more of the surrounding neighborhoods than I have since I've been living here. And so it's just really interesting. I don't know. It's just really interesting to think about, like, but obviously you have to have like-minded people to do that, right? You can't just have anybody. And that's another thing that really was standing out to me this morning as well. Like, people would have to be like-minded and everything like that. But let me keep going, y'all, because I probably went on a tangent just now. So let me just keep going. All right, so then Hebrews 10:24 and 25 stood out to me, and it says, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together as the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Yeah. I mean, I know people have been talking about the circles that animals have been making. People have been debating, is this the end times? Like, I don't know if it's the end, but I would say that something definitely is unique happening now versus any previous years. Now, I don't know if it's just because, again, I think maybe my eyes got open to more things once I became a parent, and then once 2020 happened and all the different type of stuff, like, maybe, things have been happening, maybe we've been in the end times since Jesus left, whatever. I don't know. All I know is, that, I think, again, us coming together and fellowshipping together is important. I mean, I already said that, but basically, this whole thing about separating people, keeping us isolated, and because I mean, how much do you get into? I mean, I know you can get into some stuff when you with people, but like, how much more do you get into when you're by yourself? Can you ask yourself that question? Like, how much, there's more temptations when you're by yourself. There's more, like, you have, when you're alone and you feel alone and you feel like you have nobody that, and then you don't have hope, right? Then that's a, well, what's coming to my mind right now is like a cold, dark place to be internally. And that leads to all the other things that we know about already, like suicide and all other types of thoughts that could come into your heart and mind. And you don't have anyone or anything to combat that with when you isolate yourself. So I don't know, y'all. I think, this whole thing about true fellowship is important. And this is what the Lord shared with me this morning. And I guess we have a limited understanding about it, but let's encourage one another to come together, y'all. That's all I can say. Hebrews 13:16, it says, do not neglect to do good and share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God. So, just something to think about today, y'all. I know I was going deeper, and there was a lot of verses in the go deep. Well, basically, for the go deeper section, what I put is to go to OpenBible.info and look up fellowship, because there were so many different verses with wisdom that I think will be, beneficial for us to think about and whatnot when it comes to fellowship in general. But this idea of true fellowship, this idea of community and coming together and all this type of stuff, I think it's something that we need to, like, think about a little bit more and maybe try to be more intentional about. As I share my testimony, this year I feel like I've had more, like, moments to fellowship with, I guess, homegirls or whatever the case is. And it's been very, I've been very appreciative of those moments. Even if it was just two of us, which the Bible says 2 or 3, gathered in my name, I'm in the midst. So even if it's just 2 of us that went out for brunch or something, or, it's just been very, like, edifying to me to be amongst, like, other women that are like-minded, right? Or just, being able to fellowship with other women. So that's the thing. It's like, how much more can we be edified if we come together as a community of believers? The thing I do like about the church that I'm going to is that they do encourage, like, small groups. They encourage, fellowship outside of the church. And I do see how the church does things in the community, and so that's a blessing as well to go to a place like that. But I get it, y'all. We can be frustrated when we think about the faith. We can be frustrated when we think about, and when we see people mismanaging the word of God and mismanaging or misleading the people of God when it comes to just them just living lavishly or whatever the case is, and their people not even being able to maybe pay rent or whatever, I don't know all the situations about what people go through that go to these mega churches or whatever the case is, but I don't know. I think again, this is what came to me this morning. We might need to think about this when it comes to true fellowship. And that's the juice, y'all. That is the juice. The Bible verse of today is Matthew 7:7. It says, "Ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and ye shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you." Friends, I hope y'all enjoyed this juice this morning. Thank you so much for listening to God, Sex, and Love, your daily dose of inspiration and juice. I pray you guys can go forth and have a wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you all tomorrow, if the Lord's will. Bye-bye. And there you go, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, anybody listening to the sound of my voice. I hope that you all are encouraged and inspired to fellowship a little bit more. Again, this whole thing about community and true fellowship, and that really sounds like a miraculous thing for a group of people to really come together. Like, let's sell our possessions, come together. We eat together, we we distribute food, whatever the case is. Like, who knows if we really gonna have to live like that again one day. Like, I mean, I get that, people didn't have all the technologies that we have today and stuff. So I don't know, like, if I'm not saying it's not possible, because I know there's groups that do it, but I don't know what y'all think. Like, what would that even look like? The closest thing I can even say that could be similar to it is I used to volunteer at a place called Give Kids the World. And it's like this place in Florida that they take like terminally ill children, and they just kind of, take them and their families, and then take them to, Disney World, and they do all these different things for them. And they have this little neighborhood where they can come and stay in this house. They don't have to pay nothing to stay in the house. They don't have to pay for the food that they eat. There's like a place for them to eat food. And then they also can, like, they got like a little ice cream shop and a pizza shop and all this different type of stuff. And it's like, and they don't have to pay for any of it. All they got to do is just come up to the ice cream stand and they can get ice cream, or they can call the little number and somebody will come and bring them a pizza. Like, and I wonder, like, what would life be like if we live like that as a big, as we, I mean, I know the world has its different customs, but if a community lived like that, like a whole neighborhood, or if like a real one, or like, what if a city lived like that? Like on one hand, you're like, well, who would be the ones working, But I mean, if there was a system, that people could work, and, you work partial time, you able to, and then everybody works, everybody receives, you know what I mean? Like, will we have an issue with that? I don't know. People so engulfed in self that when it comes to community and all that, like, I mean, we barely think about each other, and I'm sure I'm guilty as well. Like, I mean, in my own ways. So I'm not sitting here trying to point no fingers at nobody. I'm just throwing out ideas and things that have come into my heart and mind when I think about this idea of true fellowship and stuff. But all right, y'all. Well, that's it. That's all I have to say. So I will let y'all go. I hope that you guys are encouraged and inspired. Thank you so much for tuning in. Prayerfully tonight, you guys will see the latest episode of God, Sex, and Love Talk Show. And yeah, I look forward to talking to y'all tomorrow, if the Lord's will. Bye-bye.